Hello everyone, welcome to Edtalksfilm. My name is Ed. We're here to talk books today, actually. One video that I've kind of wanted to do for a while is just talk to you guys about some of the books that I have in my possession. And specifically, because it's a film-related channel, all my books that are related to film. And if you guys want to see the rest of the books in my collection, please let me know. I'll totally do a whole nother video where I talk about the other books in my collection that aren't necessarily film related. But I might expand this channel to talk a little bit about some books in the future. I know we already do film books here and there, like book reviews and stuff like that. Like I did for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, the hardcover. I believe I did one on, I believe that was on this channel. I did it for Transcendental Style and Film. If not, that might have been on my old channel, just Edtalksfilm, not Edtalksfilm Redux. And yeah, so let's get right into it. Some of these books you've seen before on the channel, but some of them you haven't. So let's get right into it. First book we have is Silent Bob Speaks. This is the collective writings of Kevin Smith, writer-director Kevin Smith, as we all know. Clerks, Mallrats, Jay and Silent Bob. This book was actually given to me by a friend because, you know, I know I have a little bit of a love for Kevin Smith, and you know, they were like, "Hey, do you want this book? I know that this dude's a filmmaker. You might find something in it." So I'm like, "Sure, why not?" I haven't read it yet, but I do plan to. It looks very interesting. Kevin Smith's a funny guy. I used to listen to his podcast a lot, Fat Man on Batman, which I believe now is just Fat Man Beyond. Really, really funny podcast. Listened to it a lot back in the day, especially when I was really into comic books and comic book movies. So, yeah. Kevin Smith, Silent Bob Speaks. Next, we have a book that everybody has seen on the channel already, and that is the Annotated Godfather Complete Screenplay. I did a whole video about this book. So, in short, this is the entire screenplay of The Godfather, with notes and pictures and different behind-the-scenes stuff added to it. It's really, really cool, actually. I've read through a little bit of it. It's a nice book that I like to read whenever I'm writing a screenplay or I'm having just an issue. I just feel like I need to look at a screenplay. Here's like the greatest screenplay ever written, The Godfather, and I just have it. And it's got some really, really neat stuff in here. I highly recommend going to seeing my video that I did about this Godfather book. I'll link it in the description below. But yeah, this is a really, really awesome book. Glad to have it in my collection. Next, we have a book that's actually pretty recent to my collection, and that is David Fincher Mind Games. I got this a few months ago. Here's the back. Really, really awesome picture of David Fincher right there. And this is basically, if you've ever seen those books, like there's that Paul Thomas Anderson Masterworks book, or there's that Quentin Tarantino book, or the Christopher Nolan book. It's basically a book just about the films of David Fincher. Analyses, talking about different behind-the-scenes processes, explaining what his influences are, all of that. Sort of a reader's guide to deciphering David Fincher and why he makes movies the way he makes movies, and you know, what are the things to maybe look for if you're into David Fincher movies, or if you're just getting started. This really is like, you know, maybe not the beginner's guide, but sort of the intermediate, like, hey, here's something to discover more of this artist that you may already love. This is actually going to be the next film book review that I do, because I want to read through a little bit more of it and really get into it. It also contains, what I really like about this book is that it is pretty recent, so it does go all the way to Mank, which is a David Fincher film I actually very, very much enjoy, that I didn't originally, but I grew to really, really like that movie. So yeah, this is actually going to be the next book I go over, so I won't talk too much about it. Next, we have The Big Goodbye, Chinatown and the Last Years of Hollywood by Sam Wasson. This is one of my favorite books ever, of all time. I love this book. Chinatown is an amazing film. Anybody who's ever watched it will say that. Maybe not everybody, but a lot of people. It's a very well-regarded film. One of the greatest films of the 70s. And Sam Wasson wrote this very incredible book that is like a deep dive on the making of the film, the history of the people involved, specifically Jack Nicholson, Robert Towne, and Roman Polanski. And it talks about everything that went into it, the making of it, the history of these people, things that happen afterwards. There's sort of like a Where Are They Now section towards the end of the book that's really, really amazing. And tragic, too. And this is a great read for anybody who loves movies and wants to learn about the history of movies and through one of the greatest movies of all time. There's a lot in here. It's a phenomenal book, which actually kind of leads me into the next book that I'm going to talk about. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Now, I've done a video on this book as well, which I will also link in the description. I think it's maybe my most watched video on the channel. Second most watched video on the channel, I believe, is my review for this book, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Possibly my favorite book of all time, honestly. Quentin Tarantino's writing in this book is phenomenal. I love this novelization of the book because it doesn't just do the here's everything you saw in the movie, but written out. It takes its time to do something different, to change scenes around, to flesh out characters in ways that you didn't know before, to change the scenes that you've seen in the movie, to add beginnings, stuff on the tail end or stuff at the beginning end of scenes that you did see in the movie, and also go in completely new directions altogether. And I appreciate that a lot about this book. Tarantino's writing is just as entertaining as the films that he makes. Honestly, I had a blast with this book, and if you want to learn more about how I feel about it, you can watch my Once Upon a Time in Hollywood hardcover book review in the description below. The next book, this was a gift for Christmas, I believe, and it is Sidney Lumet's, actually this might have been a birthday present, Sidney Lumet's Making Movies. This is a book that I really want to read. I'm probably going to have to sit down and just binge it over a couple days. But this is one of the quintessential books on directing film. Sidney Lumet is actually one of my favorite directors ever. I love, The Verdict. 12 Angry Men is an amazing film that I actually, when I rewatched it this summer, I actually couldn't believe how much I loved it. Such a phenomenal artist. Dog Day Afternoon, that's another freaking amazing one. I saw that one very recently. Serpico, everybody's seen that movie. But yeah, this is sort of his guide to being a director and what it's like and what to do, and it's supposed to be an inspirational book, a very valuable book for aspiring filmmakers like myself. So gonna get on this one soon. I'm reading 3 books right now, so I'm there's so many books on my to-read list, unfortunately. Next, and this directly ties into sort of the Once Upon a Time in Hollywood and The Big Goodbye, and that is Pictures at a Revolution. Now, this is another book that I have not read yet, but I'll tell you a little bit of story why I got this book. I got this book because when Tarantino was going on every podcast to talk about Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, he went on Mark Maron's What the F podcast. Great podcast if you need a podcast to listen to, and there's some great guests on there. He's had PTA on there. He's had Tarantino on there. A lot of the film ones are the ones that I really, really like. I really like, there's one he did with William Friedkin, I believe. That's an amazing one. I loved that podcast. But yeah, so this is basically about the films that sort of ushered in the 70s, which is my favorite decade for film. A lot of my favorite movies ever are 70s movies. They're movies from the 70s. That I think is probably the greatest decade for film. And, I'm a slow reader. I don't read too much, but, I wanted to sort of, get a lot of books about subjects that I know I'll be interested in when I do read them. So this book, basically, it goes over like 5 movies that sort of like gave birth to like the 70s, the new Hollywood era, as we call it. And they are Bonnie and Clyde, The Graduate, Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, In the Heat of the Night, and Dr. Dolittle. I've actually only seen 2 of those movies. So I'll probably have to watch Dr. Dolittle, Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, and In the Heat of the Night, which I know is, supposed to be like one of the greatest movies. I'll probably have to watch all those before I start reading this book, which wouldn't be too hard. That'd be like a day or 2 days before I start reading. Get myself up on it, but I love the Graduate. Love Bonnie and Clyde. I actually got to see it for, I think, the 50th anniversary, I want to say. I think it was like the 50th anniversary. It was 2018. I got to see that in theaters. It was like TCM does like their classics thing, you know what I mean? Amazing movie. Loved it. Arthur Penn is a genius. So, yeah. All right, next we have another one of my favorite books. This is a book that's written by maybe my favorite writer, director, maybe ever. And that is Transcendental Style and Film by Paul Schrader. Now this is the newer edition of the book, which came out in 2017. When it was like reissued in 2017 when Paul Schrader was obviously doing the rounds for First Reformed. And there was a new introduction that was written by him called Rethinking Transcendental Style, which he's also done lectures on. I did a video on this book, I think on my old channel. This is a great book. Okay, this book has really made me think hard about like what works and what doesn't work in a film, because the entire thesis of this book is about what actually in a film conjures a spiritual experience, right? What in a film, what elements of a film, what filmmaking techniques, how do films sort of provoke a transcendental response in the viewer? You know what I mean? What puts them above, outside of just the confines of the screen and gives them an experience, an elevated experience. And he basically breaks down the works of Ozu, Bresson, Carl Theodor Dreyer, and talks about their films and what different things in their films sort of bring that out. And the one of the greatest things I think is like how he sums it up towards the end, because you can watch all of that, you can read all of that, and you can go, okay, well they do this, and this, and this, and oh, I've learned something. But I think what's great is he goes towards examples of movies that we know, specifically Christian films, that try to provoke a transcendental sort of response, a spiritual response, but he kind of breaks down why those don't work as well, which I think is very fascinating. I really liked this book, but it wasn't an easy read for me, if I'm being honest. It's a short book. It's not even that many pages. It's only it's less than 200 pages, I believe. But it really isn't that. The wording, it's an academic book. So, for me, this is a book I read towards the beginning of my reading journey, which only started 2 years ago. 2 years ago I started really starting to read a lot more. So this is kind of hard to read towards the beginning of my journey, but after I visit more of the works of Ozu, Bresson, and Dreyer, I'll probably reread this book, or at least sections of this book, depending on the filmmaker, because it is split into thirds, so you can just read based on which filmmaker you want to look at how he dissects. But I highly recommend the introduction. I think the introduction might have been my favorite part of the whole book, because I feel like I could really understand what Schrader was talking about, and not only just understand what he was talking about, because I had a basis for what he was saying, because it was interesting to see him just be reflective on this sort of thesis that he created back when he was, like a critic. So it's really, really fascinating. This is a great book, though. This is a book to definitely have if you are a filmmaker, aspiring filmmaker, I would say, because, or if you're a film critic, right? Because it gives you a chance to really read somebody else's well thought out academic work on a specific type of film and a specific film movement that kind of goes through decades. So yeah, Transcendental style in film. Next, we have a book that you guys have also seen on this channel already, the Under the Skin A24 screenplay book. This is a great book. If you want to learn more about this book, please watch that video. But basically, I'll link it in the description. Whoop, stuff is dropping out of it. It's basically the screenplay of Under the Skin. And then it has some extras in it, like interviews and behind the set photography and stuff like that. It's a great book. I have a video of it on this channel. I'll link that in the description below. Finally, at the end, the big daddy of all the books that I have, and that is the Stanley Kubrick Archives, edited by Allison Castle. This was actually a book that I did a video on my old channel, which I actually may redo for this channel because it kind of bugs me that it's on my old channel that I can't access anymore. This is a Taschen book. It's big, and I'll show you guys a little bit of the inside of it. It's basically like the everything you need to know, well, almost everything you need to know about Kubrick book. The first half of the book is basically like pictures. Man, it's hard. This is a thick, big book. It's hard to like hold up. You know, pictures from the films, frames from the movies, and they kind of go through every film that he directed and, you know, show you what's going on in them. Pick a good one. Here's a good one. You know, so like we have 2001: A Space Odyssey. Clockwork Orange, Barry Lyndon, The Shining. I actually just watched this. If any of you guys follow my Instagram, please do. It'll be in the description. I just watched this recently. Great film. And then in the second half of the book, it's basically just all sections. It's all, you know, writings on the films, right? What they mean, what went into the behind the scenes, how the films were made. Very, very interesting. And there's also a great section towards the end about the unmade works of Kubrick, which is also very fascinating. I might remake the video for this channel because it'd be interesting just to show you guys, everybody who's followed me all the way over, and all the new people who've shown up, like, you know, this great book, great book that I'm glad that I own. So yeah, those are all my film-related books in my collection. So yeah, if you guys have any other film-related books you guys want to recommend to me, please let me know in the description. I'd be very, very interested in that. Also, if you guys want to see any of those books in particular get reviewed, let me know. I'll probably get around to reviewing every single one of them once I read them all. But yeah, thank you guys so much. Please leave a comment down below. Please check out any of the other videos from my channel that I will put in the description that are, you know, more in-depth looks at some of these books. And yeah, thank you very much. I'll see you guys next time. Peace out.